How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting, and welcome back to ReWrite, where the, can we even call ourselves double agents? I think we're almost like a triple agent, because we've infiltrated and we're trained by Guardian, and now we're kind of like a off-duty or like, kind of a low-rung operator. And then over here, we're literally joining Gaia, and we set things up, and we have the disposition that already, like, it's so interesting because we really talked about this, especially in the Akane route. The idea that Kotarou has potential to be a summoner, as well as being a guardian, being a superhuman, but in both categories, he'd be considered low rung, but I think that's because he's a blend. That's really what's interesting about it, and so we're seeing this materialize because through a little bit of manipulation and kind of making sure that he controlled a little bit of the narrative, he's being brought in, and now he's going to become trained to summon familiars. And I'm guessing he's not going to be capable of doing a whole lot like he was before, where he might be limited to just small messenger familiars. But that's the thing, is like, he's going to start being trusted within the organization. And it's going to get interesting to see, like, are they ever going to get suspicious? Are either organization going to catch whiff of the fact that he's also working with the other, or are either of them going to discover a third weird organization that's out there that's slowly kind of picking up those who are left behind and building into something else that he's also in charge of that we haven't heard anything about quite yet, but I'm sure is going to be coming up eventually. It's really fascinating and very cool. I like what they're doing here. I've always liked what they've been doing, but I kind of picked up on it last time where it's like, oh, each path that we watched with each character that he started a relationship with planted seeds that kind of come together in this actualization. So this plan that he's putting together and these steps he's going through, it's really going to start meaning something, and it's incorporating so many aspects of these realities that he witnessed. And it's all going to start coming together into something really interesting. And yet again, it also seems like that the sacrifice that's going to be made is the love and friendships that he cherished in those alternate timelines got sacrificed because of the dedication he has made to this path of potentially saving humanity and taking care of Kagari. So yeah, that was a talk to her last time. That was fun. Anyway, let's get started, shall we? Enough rambling from me. Training to become summoners of familiars begins. The word training calls to mind harsh physical trials, but Gaia's training is entirely different. It's a short-term retreat where we focus entirely on meditation and listening to lectures. Spiritual practices, essentially. At the beginning, all the attendees are grouped together, but they later receive individual instruction based on abilities and progress. It takes the most talented a few days to reach the stage where they are permitted to handle familiars, where it takes me a week. At first, I'm told to simply hold a lump of clay. It looks like clay, but apparently it's been processed into the lowest form of familiar. The link between familiar and life. They call it a contract. Forming a contract with a clay familiar is our very first goal. I meditate all day long in a pitch-black room holding the lump of clay. Meals are brought in, but I'm instructed not to go to sleep until I'm at my limit rather than at my set time. I meditate until I pass out. When I wake up, it's still a lump of clay. I lose all sense of day and night in the passing of time here. Oof, that does sound like torture. About a week passes, though. Suddenly, I sense something glowing deep inside the clay. My eyes are closed, so it's nothing I can physically see. I bring my consciousness close to the light. Oh, the strand. And once I do, I realize that there's an invisible line connecting me to the clay.
これが契約線か。
Suddenly, the clay in my arms expands in size. It's swelling up with incredible power. I open my eyes. It stretches itself out, convulses, and falls to the floor.
電気つけますね。
It takes a few seconds for my eyes to adjust to the light after so long without it.
おめでとうございます。契約は成功です。
Dang. So they were watching the whole time, probably with infrared. I look down and see the clay, now long and narrow, clinging to the floor. From the lower part of it, 7 appendages of some sort are growing out crookedly. It looks like it's trying to become a giraffe. Exerting its super strength, the simple lump of clay flexes something like a mass of muscles to stretch itself larger. I can't sense the contract line anymore.
この魔物は死んだのですか？いいえ。これはもともとただの粘土だったのです。
Oh.
あなたの注いだ命が一時、かりそめの命として宿ったに過ぎません。
That's a bit of a downside of double dipping. He's giving life force to both ends. It's literally burning the candle at both ends.
あなたの命は少し純化されました。浄化がなったのです。
なるほど。
After the contract comes practical training. This consists of practice containing concentrating with complete familiars and controlling them. My training begins with making contract with an insect familiar and controlling it.
では飛ばしてみてください。可能な限り遠くに。
All of us attendees make our assigned insect familiars fly toward the forest. I've been assigned a stag beetle that's had its large mandibles refined into weapons. Actually, when we were, I don't know if you'll remember this side story, because I don't recall. I'm sure I put it in the videos, but there was like a side quest type of event chain that happened, where you're training a little beetle like a Pokemon, and it's funny because it reminds me of that. To be totally honest, it's a little cute in a cryptid way. Following the crowd, I found my familiar take off from the building rooftop. It's pretty easy to make the insect fly, although I wasn't that good with the birds we were given earlier. Though it wobbles all over the place, it flies into the distance. It flies so far, I can't control it anymore. One of us drops out, then two, and I also lose control partway through. The contract line has been severed. Once everyone loses their familiar, training ends.
それが皆さんが魔物を操れる限界の距離となります。よく覚えておきましょう。
So everyone has a different kind of reach, psychic reach.
今のは他愛ない虫ですから、もし発見されても大事にはなりません。ですが、より大きな魔物となると、なくしましたでは済まないこともあります。
Right, if you lose them, you have to go find them.
魔物は可能な限り、目の届く範囲で操るのが良いのです。
Where there's a familiar, there's always a summoner nearby. Gotcha. I can understand that.
今の魔物はどうなるのですか？
虫の魔物は命をほとんど消費しません。とても燃費が良いのです。ですから、注いだ分の力を失うまでは、残っている本能に従って動き続けるでしょうね。
So disconnected familiars can operate based off pure instinct, but it's only for a limited time.
これが動物タイプだとすぐに尽きてしまうのですが、ただあれらは必要ない消化器官などは取ってありますから、餌は食べませんし、繁殖もできません。放っておけば、いずれ土に帰るでしょ
う。Okay. That would explain the rumors of cryptids appearing in the forest. This is getting pretty fun. Yeah, it does actually, because like people see weird animals and they go back and they've turned to dust and they're no longer there. They even like they wouldn't leave proper tracks or trails to follow. Cryptids would be the best explanation. That's a small little detail that makes a lot of sense.
先生、私の魔物が途中で途絶えてしまいました。
おかしいですね。どのあたりですか？
あのあたりで。
鳥にでも狩られましたか？
It's around the area where Kagari is hiding. Don't tell me she... Uh-oh. Summoners have varying degrees of aptitude. The smartest ones can work out with more advanced familiars, while others with inferior skill can only control one simple familiar at a time. The lecturer glosses over the difference in ability, calling it the difference in compatibility. Evidently, I'm not that great of a summoner. It's not possible for all of me to wield a large familiar, for all of me to wield a large familiar like Jasmine could. I can only contract with smaller ones like birds and beasts. And even if they're small, I can't really control familiars that take forms that don't exist in the real world. If there were a ranking of summoner, I'd probably be listed just above the worst ones. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing though, it's like, the biggest reason for that is because the aptitude of personality that is required to be a summoner and required to be superhuman are almost diametrically opposed. So to be both, you're going to be kind of crappy at both of them. I don't exactly love birds, and bugs don't thrill me either. But it seems like I'm pretty well suited with working with small animals. Once I'm able to freely control a black dog, I pass the practical portion of my training. Last but not least, it's creation. Bringing forth a brand new familiar is much more difficult than controlling ones that are already made. Creation refers to bringing the familiar into being. Only a few can do this. Therefore, it doesn't matter all that much if you pass this part of the training or not. Someone like me, who's barely a summoner, can just write this off. That's what I thought anyway, until I succeeded. Oh! Oh, interesting. That's actually very interesting.
鈴木さんの隠された才能には私もびっくりです。
I'm blown away myself. He's like, he's like, whoa, what? I poured life force into organic matter and molded it into a temporary body. Familiars need to have a mobile physical body. If the skeleton and muscle designs aren't consistent, it won't move properly. It's also possible to draw up a familiar completely from scratch, but you definitely need special knowledge and senses. It's way easier to use the dead body of an existing creature. You just have to enhance any functions that it'll need to remove anything that won't. Familiars need to receive life force when you want them to move, but they can be stored when not in use. The Martel group apparently has scores of rare and valuable familiars nobody today could create in storage. At the end of the retreat, I'm given a set of formal robes. Thick, heavy black robes with no sort of design on them. I'm officially a Gaian. Dang, interesting. It's interesting that he can create them. And I also wonder, like you said, it needs special knowledge. I wonder if you could have a cursory knowledge of just the needs of a body to function and move, like how muscles and tendons attach to bone and use them to support and functionally move themselves. And if you understood those concepts well enough, if you could then apply them in creating your own familiars from scratch, instead of using the template of a dead body. Alright, once I'm deep in the forest, Kagari shows herself.
どのような状況でしょう。
マーテルに潜入できたと思う。今後はより深い調査ができる。
マーテルはホモサピエンスの中でも
そうなるな。マーテル、ガイアとも呼ぶが、こいつらともう一つガーディアンという組織があんたを狙ってる。
心配は無用です。カガリの姿は
Some can.
そう言い切れるもんでもないんだが。
それより今はそのガイアとやらを駆逐するべきでしょう。
何言ってんだよ。
あなたは群れの中に入りました。うちから滅ぼすためではないのですか？
I mean, kind of, but we also just don't have that capability. We have to do it in our way.
俺一人じゃ無理だ。だが、情報を集めれば、あるいはあんたへの捜査の手は止められるかもだろ。そうやって安全を確保しながら内情調査を進める。
そのような悠長な真似をする必要はありません。すぐにでもガイアを殲滅する準備に入りなさい。
Alright, Kagari. A little bloodthirsty there. I get why, though. She's got... like, time doesn't make as much sense for her. And yet, at the same time, for being a being that likely is eternal, she's very, very concerned about this and making sure that things happen quickly, which means we really might just have no time at all. That's terrifying.
カガリ、無茶を言わないでくれ。俺は最強の勇者じゃない。無双プレイはできない。
では、自らを強化なさい。
人間はそんな簡単には強くなれないんだよ。
Her gentle drifting ribbons suddenly shoot out like a viper and wrap around my neck. They throw me against a huge tree and lift me up. I'm being strangled.
カガリの目を節穴同然だとでも確かにカガリは人の断りには疎い。ですが、目の前にいる個体くらいは把握できます。
何？
天王寺小太郎。お前は自らの性能を変える能力を持っています。
Oh, so she can see his ability.
それを用いて必要な闘争力を得なさい。傷が癒えた後にはガーディアンを攻撃すればよいでしょう。
どうしてそう不可能なことばかりさせようとする。確実に結果を出すことが。
愚劣極まるホモルーデンス。卑しき個体がカガリの計画の足を引くことは許されません。今のやり方では確実に手遅れになってしまいます。
しかし、あの力は。
She releases me. I land on my behind, coughing, gasping for breath.
あなたにできぬというなら、今からガイアの中核に案内しなさい。
どうするんだ？
Yeah, that's kind of terrifying. What are you gonna do?
カガリ自ら祭壇を下します。
舐めすぎだ。魔物が出てくるぞ。中には鍵を感知できる個体もいるはずだ。あんたは強い力を持ってるけど、戦闘向けじゃない。戦闘意識さえできてない。 無意味な提案だよ。
残された時は。
時間がないのは分かってる。けど、具体的にどのくらいの時が残されているんだ？
Yeah, that'd be nice.
いえ、この係にさえ正確な時間は分かりかねます。
Okay, well, see, there's the problem there. It's like, we don't know how much time to work with. If we're reckless, we're going to make mistakes and we're not going to be able to do what we need to do. Or we'll do what we do, but it won't actually have the effects we want. And if we're too slow, it won't matter what we do.
だったら、下手に焦って自滅するのは得策じゃない。着実に地固めしないと達成できない目的なんだ、これは。
She bites her lip, irritated.
なぜ思い通りにならないのです？
それが世界というものだからだ。みんな、それで苦しい思いをしてる。俺だってそうだ。わがままばかり言わないで、分かってくれよ。
Interesting.
そんな。
I mean, he's got a point there. He's like, this is how the world works. This is why we all suffer. She freezes, utterly taken aback. I had a sneaking suspicion, but now I know I'm right. While Kagari seems like some sort of god, she's actually a spoiled little girl who knows nothing of the world. And she said herself, she doesn't understand humans at all. The same goes for the human world and for politics.
不可能とは言わない。困難なことだけど。
I think it's interesting. So, like, she almost talks about, like, not understanding humans like it's an excuse. But she's clearly intelligent. I wonder if we took the time to try and educate her, tried to help her see things from our perspective. In fact, if she could... you know what? It sounds ridiculous. But I almost wonder, like... what if she could, like, tuck away her powers and hide her identity, but reveal herself physically to humans? What if she could get, like, a job? It sounds bizarre, but, like, even a crappy little job, just for a little while, where she could, like, talk to people and just start to, like, maybe get a feel for how they work. It might do her a lot of good. But that's so risky, I don't think it's possible.
でもそれには、必要なだけの時間がかかるんだ。
It doesn't necessarily have to be a job, by the way. Like, the jobs is a good example of a way to meet lots of different people across different, like, from different perspectives and different points of view. Because they're coming to you for a service. That's the only reason why I suggested a job, because otherwise she could go people watch in the park, but you can't have conversations with or, like, overhear people very well if you do that.
俺を信じてくれ。俺はあんたを裏切らない。
当たり前です。裏切りなど、あってはならないことです。
Of course you won't betray me. You can't. It's not allowed. Doesn't sound like she's going to thank me even if the plan does succeed. I guess it's fine though. Then out of the corner of my eye, I spot something lying on the ground. I pick it up.
かがり、これどうした？
これらが処分したものです。
By these, she means her ribbons. She used them like hands. They're like materialization of her defensive instincts. Insect familiars often get created using dead insect bodies as a base. It's a warped rhinoceros beetle shell, part of the insect familiar. Several days ago, there was a big fuss over its loss. A familiar made of its freshly dead body may leave part of itself behind after death instead of turning it entirely to dust.
一応質問させてもらうけど、こういうことは初めてなんだろうな。
接近する異物を処分した回数は、履歴には7548度と記録されています。
バカか！
She's startled.
どうしました？問題でも。
大問題だよ。
Yeah.
あんた、さっき自分の足を引っ張るなとか言ったよな。そのあんた自身が足を引っ張ってるじゃないか。
どういう意味なのです？
ガイアの魔物を無作為に殺すな。ここに何かが潜んでいるとバレる。
問題ありません。かがりの姿は隠されています。
She didn't understand.
鍵がいると判断されたが最後、ガイアはもちろんガーディアンも特殊作戦を発動する。あんたを以前助けた時みたいにな。その場合、どちらも大戦力を投入してくる。そうなったら一瞬で終わりだ。
人はそこまで瞬時に連携するのですか？
Yeah. When something as motivating as there, yes.
当たり前だろ。素人じゃないんだぞ。歴史の中で何度も鍵を殺してきてるんだ。ノウハウがある。人間の異物を見つけ駆り立てる力を見くびるな。
Oh, then that is a statement. Don't underestimate humans' ability to identify something foreign and stamp it out. Fetch me.
では、どうしろと？
近づく者にむやみに手を出すな。どうしても排除しなければならない時だけ、慎重に判断して、可能な限り痕跡を残さず、情報も与えずし止めてくれ。
不可能です。 そのための判断基準が、かがりの理解にはありません。
だよな。
I think about things calmly and objectively. She couldn't have shot down familiars in all of those 7,000 instances. Familiars would only make up a small part of it. I can reasonably assume that most of it was empty cans and garbage.
人間を殺したりしてないよな。
かがりは、ホモサピエンスをみだりに殺害しません。
That's good. I hadn't even thought to ask that, but that was a great question. Whew.
明確な攻撃を受けた時のみ、これらがおのずと敵を排します。
She intertwines her fingers with the ribbons as she speaks.
いいか、偵察型の魔物には操る魔物使いと感覚をリンクさせてる個体もあるんだ。だからそういうものは攻撃せず素早く身を隠す方がいい。できるか？
見つからぬ場所とやらをあなたが指示してくれるなら。
わかった。早急に調べておくよ。
Why is she blushing here? I don't get that. Protecting a spoiled little girl is hard work.
できたらあんたに人間世界を理解してもらうのが手っ取り早いけど。
では今すぐ諸国漫遊の旅を。
That's interesting.
群れに接することでかがりは学びます。
それもあまりうまくないな。
I've never been as busy as I am now. I'm juggling between a Gaian as well as a Guardian hunter. I'm losing sleep to sneak out and meet Kagari like this. Right now, all my body needs is 3 hours of sleep at night to recharge completely, but that leaves me with no free time.
護衛ができない。あんたの一人旅はかなり危ういよ。
かがりにはわかりません。なぜ人はそこまでの感受性を持ちながらこうも停滞してしまっているのでしょう。
Interesting. Why are humans stuck in their ways despite being aware of what's going on? Kind of the same question of like, why would humanity keep making nuclear weapons when we all know how terrible it would be if they ever got used? Unfortunately, it's because if we don't, somebody else will. And if somebody else does, they might not be as restrained as we are. And that's more terrifying.
これだけの知性で良い記憶が残せぬはずはないというのに。
That's the thing though, I'm not convinced that we aren't leaving behind good memories. I mean, I would like want to take her to a graveyard and a funeral and be like, look, it's not perfect, but the people who are coming to funerals typically are coming here remembering all the good things. There's of course going to be bad things involved in the past, and bad things happened, and we don't have perfect, clear, happy memories of every single person's second of every day life, but we certainly know and can respect that there was a lot of good that they did, and that we come to celebrate and remember that. I don't know, I feel like there are ways we could try and show her that, but the thing is, like, I just don't have context for how she detects good memories.
人間はどうしても争っちまうからな。それは本当どうしてだろうな。破滅するって分かってても目先のことで動いたりするもんな。
How we're destroying the planet is one great example. We know that we will destroy the Earth if things keep going like this, but we continue cutting down trees and using gas. And I think it's because we don't want to be. It's easy to tell people, yeah, let's stop doing stuff that'll destroy the planet, but it's hard to tell them that in response that means you need to stop driving, you need to start walking. We shouldn't be flying nearly as much. It should be used only for emergencies. We should be taking maybe I feel like trains are like, they produce a lot of like pollutants, but they can be so efficient is the thing. It's like when it comes to how much mass and people they can transport, they can get a lot more done with a lot less resources. I guess all I'm trying to say is that we all know that this has to change, and yet none of us really want to pay the price of change. Not just like on a personal level, but also on like a societal level. Obviously, it'd be better if we can just find solutions, but it's a question of time. And I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be able to. I mean, I like to have hope that we will. I hope that we'll be able to change and hope that we'll be able to find things and that we are moving in the right direction, but will we? I don't know. It's tough. It's really tough to call. Even if we throw around the world ecology, we're only thinking about its economic use.
人は賢くも愚かしい。まるで壊れてしまっているかのようです。
Yeah.
かがりにはわかりません。
Sorry, Kagari. Oh, okay. Guardian's underground facilities have expanded. Originally, I thought they were a vast underground space constructed below the building, but that's not what it is. Space has been compressed to create a hideaway. If that sort of technology were made publicly available, it would resolve all housing and land issues in a snap. Oh, so wait, Guardian is using the compression stuff. So, is that the same stuff that Gaia uses, or is that something different? Because that's really interesting. I don't remember that.
新作戦本部もう用意するんですか？
ガイア側に不穏な動きがあるということでな。早めに手を打つことにした。
I don't know what unsettling things are going on at Gaia could refer to. I'm still a lowly summoner who isn't privy to most information.
午後から機材の搬入があるから手伝ってやってくれ。
Okay.
はい。
それと監視要員を増強することになった。天王寺にも参加してもらう。担当者と話をしておけ。
了解です。
Asaka flashes me a smile that's loaded with significance. Alright. I wonder how that's going to play out. In the afternoon, the person in charge shows up.
マジ？
Oh no. Oh no. Well, he's our superior now, so that's something. Fetch. Why'd it have to be you?
あら、
I'm happy to see you again.
そういうことか。
天王寺だよな。
他にどう見える？
アシスタントって、いつ戻った？
先々月だ。
雰囲気変わったわね。
そっちもな。特に西九条。
Nishikujo. So that's how he says it. Nishikujo. I've been Nishikujo, but I've been like drawing it out. So he says it Nishikujo, like just really fast. It's like a whole different person. She's all bright and cheery now.
そりゃね、いつまでも沈んではいられないし。
Aww. I still think it's a bit of an act, but it is kind of nice seeing her here like this.
こいつ、もう更新の指導に当たってんだよ。
え？
いろいろあったのよ。
それだけの時間が経ったってことだな。
まあな。今じゃ俺も市内のモニター要員のリーダーだし。
They both seem so much more confident and assured. I bet they've gotten stronger too.
俺も江坂さんの補佐の合間に監視班に入ることになった。今宮の下につけばいいんだな。
ああ、まあそうだけどよ。外国行ってたんすよね。
うん。
実戦を経験したわけだ。
そりゃそうだろ。毎日実戦だったよ。
Both of them seem hesitant.
ふん。
整形でもしたのかと思って驚いた。
Oh, interesting. So wait, remember how he talked about how he crafted the way he looked? Is like that? I'm guessing they're referring to his ability when they talk about this. Interesting. Man, I like her. Like, I didn't like her at first because she felt so vapid. But man, now that I know her history a bit better, like, she's a good character.
なんで？
My face shouldn't look any different now.
まあ、いろいろだよ。一回りでかくなってるしよ。
おう。
Right, from the perspective of everyone who's in Japan the whole time, my background is different.
見かけ倒しじゃ意味ねえぞ。大丈夫か？
今宮、そういうのもうやめようよ。
いや、絡んでんじゃねえって。直接監視要員の仕事って、まあ、浮いちまうやつとは組めねえ。わかんだろ？昔みたいにどうでもいい地区を受け持ってるわけじゃねえの。神殿のそばだって監視対象なんだよ。
神殿？
文化ホールって知ってる？あなたが向こう行ってからできたんだけど。
あなた。ね。
Interesting.
何？いきなり笑って。
いや、見たさ。あの仰々しい建物か。
日本マーテルの総本山な。そんなガイア連中が大勢いる中で、俺ら見張りしてんだ。
Interesting. So he says they have eyes on the inside. Kotarou is already inside though. So do the eyes on the inside know he's there?
そんな悪ガキみたいな格好してて平気なのか？
むしろこういうのでねえと目立ってしょうがねえのよ。今時20歳過ぎてブラブラしてるやつなんざ珍しくねえべ。
今宮はそろそろ顔も老けてきてきつくなってきてると思うけど。
Yeah, yeah.
んなことはねえ。まだいける。まだ俺はヤングアウトローっしょ。
Keep clinging to your delusions, buddy.
まだいけるはず。
I don't think I can make that a thumbnail. I just want to enjoy his moment of self-reflection. He's starting to lose confidence in his youth.
俺も不良みたいな格好すればいいのか？
いや、絶対似合わねえって。普段から着てねえやつがいきなりそんななりしても浮くだけだわ。どうしたもんかな。市場抜きにしても正直悩むわ。そりゃ腕は上がってんだろうけどさ。
しばらくは単独でやってもらったらどう？
今はどこも埋まってんのよ。
つまり溶け込むことが苦手なやつは使いにくいか。
そう考えてくれりゃこっちも助かるわ。西、そっちで使うか？
うちはそういうのじゃないから。ごめんなさい。
いいさ。
It's actually better this way. Fewer teammates I'll have to betray in the end. God, what a stoic thought. But like, I also like this because like before he'd be so like self-defeating and he'd have the dark internal thoughts, which is something I most of us wrestle with at some point or another. But look at his attitude change, where he's just like, it's probably for the best, or it's all right, no big deal. Like, I'll find a place to fit. Like, that's such a healthy way to approach it.
一旦モニター要員の仕事について教えてくれるか？何か提案ができるかもしれない。
いいけど。
Imamiya spreads out a bat.
いいか？俺らの仕事は監視。つまりガイア連中の初動を抑えるのが役目だ。いわば風祭市におけるガーディアンの目だな。おめえ向こうで UAV って見たか？無人偵察機な。超小型のやつもあってそういうものも使えるんだけどよ。特にこの辺りの膨張網がひでえ。
He taps the area around the temple.
けど魔物なら虫っぽくても見てわかる。なんか違うべ。そういうのがわかるやつ、目のセンスがあるやつが直に監視する。こいつが一番だ。重要監視エリアは駅前と市街に抜ける主要道路、あとは神殿周辺のルートだな。
I wonder who this number one spy is. It seems like a very specific reference, and I imagine they're going to potentially become a problem for our personal operation.
監視対象はいろいろだ。上のオーダー次第だが、特定の要人だったり関係者が多い。対象確保の時にも俺たちがきっちりガイドする。
Okay.
よほどのことがなけりゃそこまでが俺らの仕事だ。通常時街中に溶け込むのは通称立ち班、俺らのことだな。それに勤め人やバイトとして何年も地元に馴染んでる連中もいる。
Okay. So working people staff, that makes sense. And plainclothes, like that is how we met with Imamiya with in the core game, in the main storylines. When we would encounter him, he was just running around with the punks in the alleyways and such. Yeah, so it kind of makes sense.
何年もその時に備えて普通に暮らす。できるだけ見晴らしのいい立場でな。敵地だかんな。奴らに面が悪でもしたらすげ替えにはなんねえ。俺らが一番街中での行動に気をつけねえといけない立場だ。お前が使いにくい理由わかんだろ？
Let's see what Kotarou says.
ああ、よく理解できた。
So much crucial info. I'm seriously glad I talked to him now and not later.
この辺り罰がついてるとこは？
平時はあんま重要じゃねえとされているエリア。森の中もな、連中が魔物移動させてたりしてんだが、トカゲの尻尾切り同然。そんなもんいくら仕留めてもなんもなんねえしな。悪い。お前そういうことやってたっけ？
いや、いい。
鍵絡みでもなけりゃそうそう監視してられねえってのが正直なとこだな。
So at least gives us some breathing room.
不可視の鍵をどうやって見つけてる？鍵が見えるやつみたいのがいるって話したけど。
あいつだよ、ほら。三国藩だった大西。
Onishi.
へえ、あいつそうなんだ。
あと何人かはいるけどな。それだけやってるわけにもいかねえ立場の人ばっかだ。だもんでよ、鍵を自力で発見するのは難度が高いわけだ。それでガイアが最初に見つけて、 うちが情報を盗むってパターンが多いな。
So they're saying like we identify people who can see the key, but they're so few and far between that it still usually is we're more likely to just overhear through espionage. Okay.
よく見つけられるもんだ。
鍵が出ると連中の動きが活発化する。街中でガイアの上級幹部連中の動きを監視してれば、大体のことはパターンにはまってくるもんだ。
Okay, so in that regard, being a monitor is almost the most important job. Several pieces are fitting together.
まあ、今宮、俺がこの大して重要でないエリアを受け持つってのはどうだ？
I point to the corner of the forest.
ああ、そのあたりなら問題ない。それにお前向きかもな。けど魔物狩りとかするんじゃねえんだぞ。
分かってるよ。もう子供じゃない。監視に徹しろってんだろ。地味な仕事なら任せろ。得意なんだ。
おめえもおめえなりに成長してんだな。よし、ならこの地区を任せっから、色気は出さねえで、とにかく異変を見逃すな。
All right.
君、鈴木くんだろう。
So it's really interesting. So I'm guessing he essentially subtly has just put himself in monitoring the section where Kagari is, which is just great. All right, Suzaki.
はい、鈴木と申します。
An older man addresses me while I'm doing push-ups in the garden next to the temple. He's a slender, well-built, masculine-looking man.
筋トレかね。なかなかいい体を作ってるな。
どうも。
私はSuzakiという。学部長と理事長を兼任しているものだ。
Oh?
聞いてるよ。なかなか有望だという話じゃないか。
Oh, that's right. I was about to say, like, really? I thought he was crappy as a summoner, but no. He might not be the best summoner when it comes to, like, controlling familiars, but he can make them, which is promising.
いえ、まだ右も左もわからないありさまで。
慣れないこともあるだろうが、君に期待するものも多い。私もその一人だよ。ぜひ頑張ってほしい。
Oh, gosh darn it. What am I thinking? Suzaki. Of course. Suzaki. Okay. So, we didn't cover because it was part of Akane's route, but Suzaki is kind of like Sakura, like the current holy woman. He's like her right-hand man, her like assistant. And in his whole story, it was kind of like this mutual like protection and love kind of relationship, but it broke down because the holy woman and the nature of the holy woman, how it's kind of like a collection of memories from ancient days that keeps passing on using micro familiars that they plant in people's brains when their minds are damaged. It's a really weird way that consciousness has been able to survive for thousands of years. And so he gets upset with her and they have a rift between them because when she became the holy woman, she fundamentally started to change and he kind of got freaked out by that. But I was about to say, I was like, that name's familiar.
はい、ありがとうございます。
困ったことがあれば相談に乗ろう。いつでも訪ねてきなさい。
Okay. Suzaki Soichiro, age 52. Former colonel in the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force and one of the leaders of the Japanese Martel Group. According to my investigation, he's at the head of anything related to the field work. He's the person I want to make contact with the most. He's the other half of Kashima, the figurehead. They supposedly share power, but the Japanese Martel Group is actually all under Suzaki's control. Kashima holds nowhere near as much power as she used to. Suzaki's capabilities brought about a shift in the Japanese Martel Group that made it more of a popular science and environmental organization. He stole the power from Kashima, once revered as the Holy Woman. And as a result, we have the Martel Group of today. The Kashima faction and the Suzaki faction. The latter is much more aware of the advantages and disadvantages. Approaching him was easy. I made a prototype familiar with improved fuel efficiency due to removing unnecessary performance abilities, which Suzaki was very pleased with. I was invited to a dinner when I met with members of Suzaki's faction. Very energetic people who did not seem to fit in with the Martel image. I expressed a desire to be friends with them. Yeah, I had a visceral gut reaction of dislike towards some of the people, but I held it back. I can't be choosy when I'm doing a very important job. My bad acting worked on these older people. They walked away thinking of me as a capable young rookie. Then, I just had to follow the path they made for me. Which led me to a summons to Suzaki's office, where I'm now discussing a topic I thought he might like. Yes, I was tired of living, but coming here had given me strength and a new way of thinking. I say it all to him. Leaning forward eagerly, Suzaki responds.
ここに入る際、魔物とは理不尽を改革したいという欲求の表れだと説明を受けたはずだ。私はこの言葉を方便とは思っていないよ。
Okay, yeah, so he knows exactly what his faction's looking for, and he's just appealing to it.
事実、魔物というものは年々進化を果たしている。人の手によってね。
So if he's the one conducting familiar research, then he's likely the one who, his faction was the one who was probably running the lab that had the critical crisis for Chihaya's parents, and also the creation of, Gil and Penny.
我々が古代の魔物を保持していることは聞いたことがあるかな？私は見たことがあるが、ひどいものだ。図体ばかり大きくて強力なのだろうが、とても使い物にはならん。今の我々に最も利益をもたらしているのはどの魔物だと思う？正解はこれだよ。
He points to an ornament of a sparrow decorating his desk, a bird familiar.
我々はこのようなものを使い、知りたいことを知ることができる。優れた使い手なら、くちばし一つでちょっとした工作をこなす。君の魔物にもこれと似た実用の思想を感じたよ。君は自分など早く消えてしまいたいと願っている口だろうか？
No. At least that's not the answer I can give now.
そう。自殺はいかん。私も一時静かに人生を終えられるならと考えたこともあるが、性急な考えだと思うよ。
せっかく力があるんですから、何かお役に立てることがあると思ってます。
There you go. Good answer.
どうせ一度は捨てた人生ですから、失うことも怖くはありませんが。
To Suzaki, that should make me look like someone who gave up on life for a time before regaining his ambition once more. Just as he did.
上を目指したい気持ちを持ってくれるかな？
はい。
そこまで言ってくれるか。なら一つ君に依頼したい件がある。
何なりと。
狩猟者、あるいは守護者と呼ばれる者たちのことは？
Okay. Hunters and Guardians. Are you talking about the Guardians, like, that we're part of?
そういう人々が我々を目の敵にしているとだけ。
いるのだよ。テロ行為も辞さない連中でな。我々の秘密を狙っている。君は憲兵というものを知っているかな？
Right.
はい。
マーテルにはそういう機能が存在していない。表向きには必要ない部門だからね。だが、実際は必要だ。
Interesting. Is he gonna try and put us into like a secret like self-policing Gaia folk? It's interesting too because like if we're a monitor for Guardian who's looking after gaining information about Gaia, and then we get put in a similar situation where we're also essentially a monitor for Gaia, for Guardian, that'd make it really easy for us to work our way up the ranks both sides because we could just play both sides.
組織改革を行っているが、情報漏洩も慢性化していてね。今後この問題に対処するためのサンプルが欲しいと思っている。
Interesting.
自分に内部調査を行えということでしょうか？
素人の君に専門的なことをやれとは言わんさ。噂話に耳を傾け、一人の魔物使いの立場から率直な印象を教えてくれればいい。誰が漏洩しているのかといったことまで分かれば、それに越したことはないがね。
Okay.
無理はしないでいい。
なぜ自分にそのような重要な仕事を？
君は新人だが、魔物使いとしては珍しく私たちに近い考えを持っている。そういう人材は貴重だと考えるからだよ。
He sets a palm-sized cylindrical tube on the table.
この魔物を使うといい。安心していい。植物系で代謝に酸素を使わないから寿命もほとんど減らんよ。それと、
He places a thick envelope next to it.
支度に使ってくれ。働き次第ではまたこれとは別に考える。
Okay, so he's giving us a plant familiar, likely to spy inside Gaia, and based on our job, he's giving us like a bonus essentially too. Maybe because my nature is a Japanese person, but I'm about to refuse it. I have to act like a groveler here.
ありがとうございます。
I put the envelope and tube in my pockets. Using my forest surveillance job as an excuse to talk to Kagari, I come looking for her, but she's not here. Usually she'll come out even if she stays silent, but I don't even send her around. I search for about 30 minutes, but can't seem to find her nearby.
まさか一人で。
Kagari isn't as narrow-minded in her thinking as humans are, but it's not always a good thing. She'll finally be safe as long as no detail is overlooked, no matter how tiny. At the basic level, Kagari lacks any sense of impending doom. She doesn't return no matter how long I wait. I really do like and admire her, but I get irritated if she acts the way that puts her at risk. Yeah, I mean, I get that. I'm the one putting my life on the line to protect her. I can't accept this. It's like she's rendering all my careful, prudent actions futile.
見張りをつけるわけにもいかないよな。
The Gaians have familiars that can sense the key.
くそ。もし今あいつが見つかったら。
It'll be game over no matter how you look at it. And if that happens, I'll be forced to protect myself even if that means deserting Kagari.
あいつのために死ねるか。
Interesting. I met Kagari as if I was guided to her. It even made my heart race. I'm curious about her. I feel possessive of her too. Each clandestine little rendezvous like the ones we've been having gets me a little excited and happy. If someone were to point out that this is just me wanting to keep playing around, could I deny it? If worse comes to worse, could I be her shield and die for her? I have to consider the possibility since this is Kagari we're talking about. And it's funny because if he hadn't gone and fought, if he hadn't gone overseas and fought in the wars, like, he never would even be having these thoughts until it was too late. But he's already considering it now, which is really, really good. I pulled the cylinder from my pocket. Indeed, inside is a bunch of rolled up leaves. He said this is so familiar too.
契約線。これか。
When I form a contract with the familiar, I sense visual tag info. Innovative technology. The tangible info functions as a sort of manual. The leaf bird. A familiar designed from scratch, born of leaves. There are 3 in a small tube. It can use fragrances to send and receive information over short distances. One leaf bird can be used on its own, but a flock can also be controlled together. While that does result in slightly decreased individual sensitivity, the other features more than make up for it. I see. What a great design concept. When I look at the familiar creation as a technique for processing life energy, I could sense that it was rife with potential. My hopes were in vain. Summoners only draw out this power through negativity.
行け。かがりを探すんだ。
The 3 avian familiars the size of hummingbirds launch into the air as one. Even though they can't sense Kagari, they can follow her scent. The aura of the forest surrounds her. All they have to do is follow that. Fortunately, the leaf birds have powerful senses of smell in compensation for their poor eyesight. Kagari is in the city, walking around. I must have an intense look on my face. She fled from the woods into the city. I don't know if she fled, she's probably just watching people.
なぜこんな真似をする？
ホモ・サピエンスについての理解をそれが目的の達成に寄与すると判断しました。
あんたを狙ってる連中の懐に飛び込んでどうする？
かがりに敵意を向けてはならない。
Oof. This is harsh. Her ribbons react in a furl at my angry outburst.
心配で怒ってるんだぞ！
The ribbons settle back down, tensions have eased.
ホモ・デメンス。合理的とは呼べないありさまです。
Yeah, well, you're welcome.
かがりが育成するには、群れに接近しなければならない。言葉も、そのようにして得たものです。
何度も言わせないでくれ。あんたの存在はバレたらまずい。常に隠れていてもらわねば困るんだ。
かがりは今、あなたの判断に従っても良いものか。
星を救いたいんだろ？
ですが、事態は停滞したままです。
She's like, but you're not doing what I need you to do. And he's just like, but you're gonna throw away what I'm working on. I'm so tired of this. We've had this conversation so many times, I'm sick of it.
今、両方の組織に潜入して、内部から撹乱する準備を進めてる。もう少しだけ待ってくれ。社会を知らないあんたにはわからないだろうが、それなりのプランにのっとって行動してるつもりだ。頼む。
わかりました。待つことにしましょう。
恩に着る。
かがりを失望させないでください。
I would want to be pointing out, being like, hey, by the way, I was able to find you. Like, if I can find you, others can too. I know I felt something akin to fate when we first met, but right now my irritation with her mounts daily, no matter what I do. Aw, don't be upset at her. Okay. Suzaki said there are spies in the Martel group. I tried to ask Mr. Asaka about that, but he said there's no such thing. Of course, that might be because the information is confidential.
資質が超人と魔物使いを分かつ。我々には彼らのふりはできない。
He's right. It's hard to believe that Superhuman would be a spy undercover. Then again, what if they're in hiding? Spying on Gaia from hiding spots in ventilation ducts.
スパイ映画のノリだ。
Depending on the situation, nothing's off the table, but at Martel Group HQ, I've been assigned a division that mainly handles control and use of familiars. My guess would just be like janitor staff. Like they have staff. Like they have big building cleaners. They've got people like they can't have summoners who are just running everything because they have too limited of them. And so I think someone could infiltrate just being a civilian contractor. There are some conflicts with my working hours for Guardian, but my requests for schedule changes get approved easily, perhaps because of my special task for Suzaki. There's only a very small number of familiars at HQ. There's no sort of army to guard it. The law of the nation is the main thing protecting it. But in space inside the building is partitioned in two areas with restricted access. There's an area open to any Martel group member, and then there's an independent zone used by practitioners of secret rituals or summoners. Security when crossing from one to another is tight. Once you've left the restricted zone, it's not easy to get back inside. Most of the researchers stay holed up in the labs for days without coming out. I'm among them, working as a sort of liaison. I've met all kinds of people. People who hate the world, who are rejected by it, and whose familiars take the form of those emotions. Those sorts will engage with anyone as long as they don't get in the way of their research. That frogman works in this section too. He's in charge of the lethal familiars. He even seems to relish it.
俺もこうなっていたかもしれない。
It's hard to convey that they could be spies. Conceive that they could be spies. They hate the world. Only the Martel group accepted them. It doesn't seem like they could pay attention to anything else. Inside the organization, besides those in Suzaki's faction, there are those who belong to the Holy Woman's faction. Nowadays, the title of Holy Woman is an honorary position, but she was apparently once regarded as some sort of high priestess, a spiritual leader. Now that the organization has cast off the spiritual roots, she's treated like a symbol. Suzaki was the one who did that. The Holy Woman faction didn't have a good impression of him. They want to preserve the old teachings. The Suzaki faction wants to get more involved with worldly matters. The Martel group is split into a minority of pursuits and a majority of radicals.
須崎からすると正常派のカリスマは目障りで削いでおきたい。暗にその仕事をしろということだろうか。
Currently, the Holy Woman's faction influence is on the decline. It's also mostly women, skewed elderly. It's an insular clique, but they don't seem to be threatening Suzaki. Gaia split. I guess it's not so hard to understand. If the Holy Woman's faction gains power, things will get harder for Suzaki. Add in the skirmishes with Guardian, and we've got a three-way fight.
泥沼化するだけだな。
I'll investigate a little more. Okay. It's not like it's a clear break point, but I do think we'll just go ahead and wrap up here. Like maybe this is a part in the storyline what would be advantageous for me to go longer, have big, lengthier episodes, but at the same time, I don't know, I prefer to go only a certain length, so I think this is probably where I want to stop for today. It's really interesting because it's setting up a really decent precedent, but now we understand he's actually in pretty ideal positions for his infiltration and cross-examination of the two. So I'm thinking he's going to be working hard to essentially give both parties what they want. Because if he can do that and dance on the edge where he doesn't accidentally cross the line or get called out for his duplicitiveness, then he could probably work really well and be able to climb the ranks fast enough to shake things up. Because the first thing he can do, really, what I can see, is that he can stop the leaks from Gaia to Guardian, which might calm the Guardian down a bit and make them feel like, okay, maybe big stuff isn't going to happen as much. And then on the Gaia side, he can help with the internal struggle in factions to try and bring more stability and less, like, you know, fervor on the key, and maybe distract them to the point where they're just not even paying as much attention for her anymore. So put those two together and you've got a good situation of keeping Kagari safe, and then we can try and start working on a more destructive internal pull down, which will be interesting. I'm curious. I wonder where this is going to go. I wonder how much longer we have, too. Like, it feels like we're only barely starting. Like, it feels like this is going to go forever, but that's okay. Like, I don't really mind. It's just, I'm kind of flabbergasted that we just still have so much content seemingly to cover. And how on earth is this going to end? I'm very, very curious. I'm very excited, too. Anyway, thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel, for joining me for this adventure, and hopefully we have a lot of more fun stories to cover in the near future. Kotarou he's doing good work, and I really am excited to see, like, the fruit of his labor. But I guess we'll just have to see. I think one thing that's odd is that Kotarou, at this point, I believe she should already be a druid, which should mean that she should be in the forest a lot. So, wonder why we haven't actually accidentally run into her. Maybe the key just kind of stayed away from her for a while, and they didn't end up interacting. Or maybe Kotarou only started interacting with the key when she intervened to help Kotarou after his encounter with her. And so if she hasn't even just entered the picture yet, like, she's probably in the forest learning, but maybe she's just in a different part of the forest. Interesting. I'm wondering when we're going to start seeing them again in the story. I know it's got to be happening at some point, but so far it's just getting things all set up. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel, for being a part of this journey, and yeah, it's just good to be here. And until the next video watching me, if you see me next, I'll see you there.